Mystery of Fake Diamond. Mr. Litchfield met the young girl at a party at the home of his boss, and he fell deeply in love with her. She was the daughter of a tax collector from a small town who had passed away a few years ago. She and her mother moved to Paris. The mother hoped to find a husband for her daughter by meeting families in their new neighborhood. They didn't have much money, but they were honest, kind and quiet. The young girl was a perfect example of a good woman that sensible young men dream of marrying. Her simple beauty showed modesty like an angel, and the small smile that was always on her lips seemed to come from a pure and lovely heart. People couldn't stop saying good things about her. They would often say lucky, the man who wins her love. He couldn't find a better wife. Mr. Litchfield, who worked as a clerk in a government office, earned a salary of 3,000 francs. He proposed to the young girl, and she said yes. He was incredibly happy with her. She managed their home so well that they seemed to live a luxurious life. She treated her husband with kindness, spoiled him with attention, and her charm was so great that even after 6 years of marriage, Mr. Litchfield realized he loved his wife even more than he did at the beginning. He only had 2 problems with her preferences. She loved going to the theater and she liked imitation jewelry. Her friends, who were married to government workers, often got her tickets to the theater, usually for new plays. Her husband had to go with her, even if he didn't want to after his long days at the office. After a while, Mr. Litchfield asked his wife to have a friend go to the theater with her and bring her back home afterwards. At first she didn't like the idea, but after he asked her many times, she agreed. This made Mr. Litchfield really happy, as she loved going to the theater. She also started wanting jewelry. Her clothes stayed simple, nice and humble, but she began wearing big fake diamonds in her ears that shine like real ones. She had fake pearl necklaces around her neck, fake gold bracelets on her arms, and combs with shiny glass pieces. Her husband would often tell her, "My dear, since we can't buy real jewelry, you should show off your beauty and modesty, which are the best ornaments." But she would smile and say, "What can I do? I really like jewelry. It's my only weakness. We can't change who we are." Then she would play with the fake pearls, making the fake jewels shine and say, "Look, aren't they pretty? You'd think they're real." Mr. Litchfield would smile and say, "You like fancy things, my dear." Sometimes in the evening, when they were alone by the fire, she would put the leather box with the stuff, as Mr. Litchfield called it, on the table. She would look at the fake gems carefully, like they brought her some special happiness. She liked putting a necklace around her husband's neck and laughing, saying, "You look funny." Then she would hug him and give him kisses. One cold evening in winter, she had been to the opera and came home very cold. The next day she started coughing and 8 days later she died from a lung infection. Mr. Litchfield was extremely sad. His hair turned white within a month. He cried all the time, remembering her smile, her voice, and everything he loved about his wife who had passed away. His sadness didn't go away with time. During work hours, when his colleagues talked about daily things, he would suddenly start crying and feel really sad. He kept his wife's room the way it was when she was alive. Her furniture and even her clothes were still there from the day she died. He spent time there every day thinking about her, the person he loved. But life got tough. The money he earned, which used to be enough when his wife was alive, wasn't enough for himself. He couldn't buy the same nice thing she did, like good wine and special food. He got into debt and soon became really poor. One morning he had no money at all. He decided to sell something to get money. He thought about selling his wife's fake jewels because he had some anger towards them. They always annoyed him in the past. Looking at them reminded him of his lost wife. Even until her last days, she kept buying new jewelry, bringing home new pieces. Almost every evening he spent some time deciding to sell the big necklace, the one she seemed to like a lot. He thought it might be worth around 6 or 7 francs. It was really well made, even though it wasn't real. He put it in his pocket and looked for a trustworthy jewelry shop. After a while he found one and went in, feeling a little embarrassed to show his poor situation and offer something not valuable. "Sir," he said to the shop owner, "I want to know how much this is worth." The man took the necklace, looked at it, talked quietly to his assistant and then put it on the counter. He looked at it from a distance, probably to see how it looked. Mr. Litchfield was getting annoyed by all the actions he was about to say. "I know this isn't worth anything," when the shop owner said, "Sir, this necklace is worth from 12 to 15,000 francs. But I can't buy it unless you can tell me where it came from." The man was really surprised and didn't understand what the shop owner meant. Finally, he said, "Are you sure?" The shop owner answered, "You can try other places to see if they'll offer more. I think it's worth 15,000 at the most. If you can't find better, come back here." Mr. Litchfield was shocked and took the necklace with him as he left the store. He needed some time to think. Once he was outside, he wanted to laugh and thought, "What a fool I was. If only I had believed him. That jeweler can't tell real diamonds from fake ones." A few minutes later he went into another shop on Golden St. When the owner saw the necklace, he said, "Oh, I know this one. It was bought here." Mr. Litchfield, feeling uneasy, asked, "How much is it worth?" "Well, I sold it for 20,000 francs. I can buy it back from you for 18,000, but you need to tell me how you got it." Following our rules this time, Mr. Litchfield was really surprised. He said, But look at it carefully. I thought it was fake until now." The shop owner asked, "What's your name, sir?" "Launtin. I work for the Minister of the Interior. I live at 16 Road. Martyrs." The merchant checked his records, found the information, and said that necklace was sent to Madame Litchfield's address, 16 Road. Martyrs, on July 20, 1876. Both men looked at each other. The widower was shot, and the jeweler thought he might be a thief. The jeweler broke the silence. "Can you leave the necklace here for a day?" he asked. "I'll give you a receipt," Mr. Litchfield quickly replied. "Yes, of course." Then he put the receipt in his pocket and left the store. He walked around the streets without a clear idea. His thoughts were all jumbled up. He tried to make sense of things. His wife couldn't have bought something so expensive. No way. But maybe it was a gift. A gift? A gift? From whom? Why was it given to her? He stopped and stood in the middle of the street. A terrible doubt came to him. Was she involved then? Maybe all the other jewelry was given to her as well. It felt like the ground shook beneath him and the tree in front of him was falling. He raised his arms and fell down unconscious. People helped him and took him to a pharmacy. He asked to be taken home. When he got back, he locked himself in his room and cried until it got dark. Eventually he got so tired that he went to bed and fell asleep. The sun woke him up. The next day he slowly got dressed to go to work. After such shocks, it was hard to focus on work. He sent a letter to his boss asking to be excused. Then he remembered he had to go back to the jewelry store. He didn't like the idea, but he couldn't leave the necklace with that man. He got dressed and went out. It was a beautiful day with a clear blue sky over the busy city. People without work were walking around with their hands in their pockets. Mr. Litchfield watched them and thought the rich people are happy. With money you can forget even the worst sadness. You can go wherever you want and traveling can distract you from grief. Oh, if only I were rich. He realized he was hungry, but he didn't have any money. He remembered the necklace again. 17,000 francs. What a huge amount. He reached Golden St. and stood across from the jewelry store. 17,000 francs. He wanted to go in 20 times, but he felt ashamed. He was really hungry though, very hungry, and had no money. He made a quick decision, crossed the street so he wouldn't think too much, and rushed into the store. The owner came up right away and offered him a chair. Politely, the clerks looked at him, knowing what was going on. I checked, Mr. Litchfield, said the jeweler. And if you still want to sell the jewelry, I'm ready to pay the price I offered. Sure, sir, Mr. Litchfield said, nervous. The owner took 18 big bills from a drawer, counted them and gave them to Mr. Litchfield. He signed a receipt and with a shaky hand, put the money in his pocket. As he was about to leave the store, he looked at the jeweler, who still had the same knowing smile. He lowered his eyes and said, I have other jewelry from the same place. Would you buy them too? The jeweler nodded. Of course, sir, Mr. Litchfield said. Seriously? I'll bring them to you. An hour later, he came back with the jewelry. The big diamond earrings were worth 30,000 francs. The bracelets were worth 31,000, the ring 26,000. There was a set of emeralds and sapphires worth 24,000, and a gold chain with a solitaire pendant worth 50,000. Altogether it was 143,000 francs, the jeweler said jokingly. Someone put all their savings into these precious stones, Mr. Litchfield answered seriously. It's just another way to invest money. That day he had lunch at Voisin's and drank wine that cost 20 francs a bottle. Then he rented a carriage and went for a ride in the BLA. He looked at the fancy carriages with a kind of disregard and almost wanted to tell the people inside, hey, I'm rich too. I have 300,000 plus francs. Suddenly he remembered his boss. He went to his workplace and walked in happily saying, Sir, I'm here to quit my job. I just inherited 300,000 plus francs. He shook hands with his co-workers and shared some of his plans for the future with them. Then he went to have dinner at Café Ondley. He sat next to a well-dressed man and during the meal quietly told him that he had just inherited 300,000 plus francs for the first time. He didn't feel bored at the theater and spent the rest of the night having fun. 6 months later he got married again. His second wife was very virtuous, but had a quick temper. She caused him a lot of sadness.